Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru
Vande Guru
Paramparam.
Paramparam.
Om
Om
Sahana Bhavatu
Bhavatu
Sahana Bhunaktu
Sahanavatu
Saviryam
Saviryam
Bhavavahai
Bhavavai
Tejasvinavadhitamamamidvishavahai.
Tejasvinavadhitamamamidvishavahai.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Hari Om.
Okay, so we have completed the 10th and the 11th chapters, which were, largely Upasana oriented because they had detailed descriptions which are meant for Upasana. And so now we come to the 12th chapter. But if you remember, in the 11th chapter end, the 54th verse, Krishna had said, Bhaktya tvananyaya shakyaha ahamevam vidorjuna. Only through bhakti can you see me in this Virat Roop Ishvara manner, right? And so that was the introduction to bhakti, which is the content of the 12th chapter. And 12th chapter, as you know, is called Bhakti Yoga. So this chapter consists of a very small chapter, 20 verses. But the importance is that in these 20 verses, it is the entire Vedasara and comprehensive overview of the entire Vedic teaching is presented in this chapter. And therefore, it's a very, very important chapter. So this chapter can be broken up into two major parts, up to verse number 12, and then the rest of it from 13 to 20. So up to verse number 12 deals with the topic of Bhakti Yoga as a means of moksha. Bhakti Yoga as a means of moksha. And in these 12 verses, you will find that many of the confusions which we have regarding Bhakti Yoga is removed. And the second part, that is from the 13th to the 20th chapter, the concluding 20th verse, concluding portion, is about the phalam of Bhakti Yoga. What is the phalam of Bhakti Yoga? Moksha, right? Now, Shankaracharya, in his introduction to this chapter, he gives an introduction to this verse also, first verse. So he says that in the chapters beginning from the second chapter of the Gita and up to the end of the 10th chapter, what was this discussed? Nirguna Brahma Upasanam was discussed. And he says that in this Nirguna Brahma Upasanam, Brahman is free from all the upadis. Right. And also, he says Saguna Ishvara was also discussed. And Saguna Ishvara is important. Why? Sarva Shakti Sarva Jnanaha. He is all the powers which you are able to experience in this world. They all belong to Ishvara. Therefore, between the second chapter and in fact the 11th chapter, we have discussed both forms of Ishvara, Saguna Ishvara as well as Nirguna Ishvara, right? And this is what the problem is, that here Arjuna comes up with the same old question which he has asked in the first verse. What did he ask in the first verse? He asked whether, not the first verse, the earlier verses in chapter number 2, he asked what is the difference between Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. And here he is asking what is the difference between Nirguna Ishvara and Saguna Ishvara. Which, if you have to worship Nirguna Ishvara and Saguna Ishvara, which is better to worship? Okay, so this is the question that he asked. And therefore, this chapter is a discussion on Bhakti Yoga. And one of the most common misconceptions that we have, especially non-Vedantics have, not just non-Vedantics, especially even people who are on the beginners on the Vedantic part, they also have, is that they think that Bhakti Yoga is additional path to moksha in addition to karma and jnana. Right? So Bhakti Yoga is taken as a third path. So you have karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. This is a common misconception. When somebody talks about this, I would request people not to unmute themselves, because what is happening is that the sound is coming in the recording. So please keep your phones on mute until such time as you want to ask a question. Okay, so we should remember that I was saying that Bhakti Yoga, the third path, is a very common misconception. So whenever somebody talks about this, we have to recall the third chapter, beginning portion, where Krishna says that Dvividha Nishtha. There are only two paths, karma and jnana. Then the question is, why is this chapter called Bhakti Yoga? So I have said earlier also that the word yoga is basically, it means the title of the chapter. And that's just not, earlier on I have not given a reference to it. I just said that is it. But if you want to know why do we take the interpretation that the word yoga in every chapter means the chapter title, then one should remember that Shankara Bhashyam of Bhagavad Gita has got several sub-commentaries to it, right? So one sub-commentators are called tikas. So one sub-commentator is by a gentleman called Anandagiri, a very, very profound Acharya, and his sub-commentary is called Anandagiri Tika. There is another one by another Acharya called Ramaraya Kavi. Ramaraya Kavi. So in this sub-commentary, this is not Anandagiri sub-commentary. This is a sub-commentary by an Acharya called Ramaraya Kavi. He says that he adds in his sub-commentary that if you are going to take the argument that Bhakti Yoga means a path, then by the same argument, there are 18 chapters and each chapter has a yoga at the end of it. So you're going to say that each chapter means there are 18 paths. And therefore he says the word yoga in the chapter title has to be simply taken as Vishaya, the topic. So chapter title basically, that indicating the topic which is being dealt with by that chapter. Otherwise, what will happen if you take it as a sadhana? You say that Dvadasha Dhyaya, the 12th chapter, is a sadhana indicating bhakti as a means of moksha. Then he says, look at the first chapter. What is the name of the first chapter?
Arjuna Vishnu Yoga.
Vishada Yoga, right? So by that same logic, he says that you will say that Vishada, sorrow, is a sadhana you should undergo for moksha. So obviously illogical, and therefore it says take yoga is in all the chapters as Vishaya. So Bhakti Yoga should be read as Bhakti Vishaya. This topic is dealing with the subject of bhakti. Similarly, all the other topics. Okay. Now we go to the 12th chapter. We will chant. Please unmute yourself. अथ द्वादशोऽध्यायः
अथ
द्वादशोऽध्यायः
योगः
भक्तियोगः।
अर्जुन उवाच
अर्जुन उवाच
एवं सततयुक्ताये
एवं सततयुक्ताये
तास्त्वां पर्युपासते
भक्तास्ते
ये चाप्यक्षरमव्यक्तम्
ये
ये चाप्यक्षरमव्यक्तम्
व्यक्तम्
तेषां के योगवित्तमाः
तेषां के योगवित्तमाः।
Okay, I just muted you all. So please don't unmute yourself. So Arjuna Uvacha, Arjuna said, Ye bhaktaha. these bhaktas who are evam satata yukta, evam in the manner described earlier, satata yukta, who are committed, always committed. So those bhaktas who are always committed, tvam paryupasate, to meditation upon you in the manner described earlier, which means what? What was the manner described earlier? As Virat Rupa Ishvara, as Saguna Ishvara. So he is saying, Arjuna is saying, hey Krishna, there are a group of bhaktas who are committed to worshipping you as Saguna Ishvara. And not only that, there are another group of bhaktas, Aksharam Avyaktam, who meditate upon you as Aksharam, as the unmanifest, Avyaktam, unmanifest, Aksharam, indestructible, who meditate upon you as non-manifest and indestructible principle, which is what? Nirgana Ishvara. For that line means there are people who worship you as Saguna Ishvara, and there are people who worship you as Nirguna Ishvara. Tesham, among them, Ke Yoga Vittamaha, who are the better yogis, who are the greatest yogis. So this is a question from Arjuna. Okay. Now, if you read some commentators, they will say this is an anuprashna. Okay, prashna means a question, independent question. Anuprashna means following something. So following what? Following the previous teaching. So following the previous teaching, this is anuprashna. Arjuna is asking anuprashna, a question based on previous teaching, which all the teachings up to chapter number 11. And there, as I said, Shankaracharya said that we have talked about Nirguna Ishvara as well as Saguna Ishvara. So here, Arjuna is actually asking, is Saguna Bhakti superior? Is Saguna Bhakta superior? Is the one who worships Saguna Ishvara superior? Or is the one who worships Nirguna Ishvara superior? Right? And when you say Tvam Paryupasate, you might say Tvam just means you. Okay, so that is, Shankara says that don't take that Tvam as you. Take the Tvam as Yatha Darshitam Vishwarupam. That Vishwarupam which was talked about earlier in the earlier chapters, right? And upasate, paryupasate. There are two words there. Paryu upasate. So para upasate. So this prefix para has to be taken as indicating that upasana has to be done with something else. So paryupasate means they do upasana along with karma yoga, which of course we know by now. Upasana cannot be done only by itself. Karma can be done without upasana, but if you are doing upasana, you necessarily have to do karma. So anytime you say upasana, remember the word means karma sahita upasana. You have to be adding karma to the upasana. Upasana by itself is not correct. Okay. So each word I am explaining as Shankara is explaining because each word here is important, right? Satata yuktaha, with constant commitment, sincerely, steadfastly. Evam. So evam means what? In the manner described earlier. And Shankara in his commentary says you have to look at the 55th verse of the 11th chapter for this. So 55th verse says what? He says they give a particular description from which is obvious that he's talking about Saguna Vishwarupa. What is the logic of saying that this Evam refers to Saguna Vishwarupa? Because in the very next part of this sloka, what does he say? Aksharam Avyaktam. So this is why we took the interpretation that Saguna Ishvara was discussed and Nirguna Ishvara was discussed. In Saguna Ishvara, that which is Vishwarupa Ishvara, remember the Lord is the entire universe itself. The body of the Lord is the universe itself. So Arjuna is saying there is one group of bhaktas, devotees, who are meditating upon Vishwarupa Ishvara and Api, Cha Api. There are some others who are meditating upon Nirguna Ishvara. So if you look at the other word, he says, Shankaracharya says that other word, others, api, has to be taken as people who have given up all their desires. So there is a word in Sanskrit called Eshana. Eshana means desires. So Shankaracharya writes, Tyakta Sarva Eshana. These people have dropped all their desires. What are the three types of desires? Shastra talks about three types of Eshanas. Remember, Eshana means desire. Shastra talks about three types of desires for all human beings. Putra Eshana, very, very clear. What does it mean?
Desire for progeny.
Desire for children, progeny. With Aishana, which means what?
Desire for wealth.
And Loka Aishana, which means desire for lokas, other lokas, which means what? You are wanting a punarjanma, right? You are looking forward to punarjanma, and that is why you come to the karma kanda, so that they generate lots of punyam, and because of that punyam, you can go to a better loka, which is rebirth anyway. So the three Eshanas, Putraishana, Vittaishana, Lokaishana. And Shankaracharya says this second group of people, they have renounced all these Eshanas, all the three Eshanas, which means Shankara is talking about sannyasis. Okay. So Shankara is talking about formal sannyasis, those who have taken on the yellow, that sannyasi cloth. But for practical purposes, we can take it as mental sannyasis there. He had mentally renounced all desires because he is wanting to pursue the highest goal, which is Aksharam Avyaktam. Now, what is Aksharam over here? Again, Shankara comes to our help and says, Aksharam is Yatha Visheshitam Brahma. Brahman as described in all the earlier chapters. And again in sloka number 3 of this chapter, of the 12th chapter, you will find that there's a description of Brahman. So we are referring, Aksharam means that particular Brahman, which is what? Free from all the three upadhis. Free from Sthula Shariram, free from Sukshma Shariram, and free from Karana Shariram. Right? And because, now Shankara connects these two, because these three upadhis are not there, therefore only Avyaktam. Because when upadhi is there, is available to the Indriyas, at least when Sthula Upadhi is there, it's available to the Indriyas. But here, he doesn't have not only Sthula, the Brahman doesn't have Sukshma or Karanam, and therefore Avyaktam. Avyaktam means Akarana Gocharam, not available to the Karanams, to the Indriya, sense organs. And therefore, Shankara says Aksharam has to be taken as Nirguna Brahman. So this unmanifest, Avyakta Nirguna Brahman, some people meditate upon, right? Now, how does one meditate upon Nirguna Brahman is the question. So when we say Nirguna Brahman, then the word Paryupasate, if you're adding it here, should be interpreted as to see myself as Brahman, which is what?
Nididhyasana.
Nididhyasana. Now remember here that I want to bring this point out so that there's no confusion. There is a meditation where you have not come to Jnanam. You are in the Upasana Kanda only. You have not come to Jnanam, but you invoke Ishvara upon yourself. You are the Alambanam, the hanger on which you invoke Ishvara. Like Shiva Linga is a Alambanam for Lord Shiva, right? So there is a meditation which is called Ahangraha meditation, where you invoke Lord upon yourself. And you tell yourself, I am the Lord. But remember, that is Upasana Kanda. Right? So Upasana, when you say that I am the Lord, you have not yet come to Jnanam. You don't know the difference between the consciousness principle being the same. All those things you don't know. So when in Upasana you are saying, I am Brahman, I am Ishvara, it is a imagination. It is a upasana, it's imagination, it's a visualization. So that is different from jnanam, nididhyasanam, where you are convinced that you are Brahman because of the teaching, and therefore you meditate upon that teaching which says that Tattvamasi, you are Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi teaching, when you meditate upon, after having received the teaching, that is called nididhyasanam. When you have not come to jnanam, you can still invoke Lord upon yourself. That is called upasana, ahangraha upasana. So here we are talking about nididhyasanam. So meditating upon the meditator, atma jnanam. And Arjuna says, Tesham ke yoga vittamaha. The suffix tama is order is being superior. Vittamaha is vishishtatamaha, specially superior. So who is the most superior? Tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Among these two, hey Krishna, who is better? Right? So ultimately, if you bring it down to basics, Saguna Ishvara is one and Nirguna Ishvara is one. Right? So Saguna Ishvara, when you deal with, you are dealing with karma upasana, and Nirguna Ishvara you are dealing with jnanam. So this question of Arjuna's, you have to relate it to the third chapter question, the first verse of third chapter. Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janadana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojasi keshava. Right? There he says, when you say that jnana yoga is better than, jnanam is better than karma and upasana, then why, oh Krishna, are you asking me to do this terrible karma? Right? Karmani ghora. Why? Tat kim. Then why indeed? Mam niyojasi, you are forcing me to do karma. So there also he asked, which is better, karma or upasana? No, karma, upasana or jnanam. Because karma stroke upasana or jnanam, which is better? Which is better, karma or jnanam? Here he is asking the same thing. Which is better? Here, of course, it is upasana. So he is saying which is better, saguna upasana or nirguna upasana. Remember, karma yoga consists of upasana also. Therefore, the question is the same. Which is better, karma or upasana? Therefore, the question was wrong in the third chapter. The question is wrong here also. Why is the question wrong?
Because they are sequential and not an option. There's no option.
There is no option
Not
between
exclusive.
the two.
Yeah.
Right? You can compare only when there's a choice. Between karma yoga and jnana yoga, there is no choice. Between saguna upasana and nirguna upasana, there is no choice. Every sadhaka has to go through both. Arjuna has not understood. So what does Krishna do? Krishna doesn't stand back and say, oh my God, Arjuna, what a fool you are. Right? A good teacher doesn't do that. So here Krishna starts to explain all over again. Now, this is the indication of a good teacher. He will give the same teaching, but in a different manner, so that the student understands. And therefore Krishna starts to explain again, which we will chant verse number 2. Shri Bhagavanuvacha
Shri
Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Mayyaveshya mano ye mam
Maya Veshamano
Nityayukta upasate
Nityayukta
Upasate
Upasate
Shraddhaya parayopetaha
Shraddhaya
Shraddhaya
Parayopetaha
Parayopetaha
ime yuktatamamataha.
Yuktamamataha.
So just the words first, then we look at the explanation. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Mai Manaha Aveshya. So Maya Veshya is Mai Aveshya Manaha. Fixing the mind upon me. How? Upetaha, endowed with Paraya Shraddha. with extreme faith, with extreme Shraddha, te ye upasate mam. Those people who meditate upon me, nitya yuktaha, with constant commitment, me mataha, I consider them yuktatamaha to be the best yogis. Okay. Is this the answer to the question? No. Arjuna asked for a comparison. But this is not the answer. Why? Because the question, when the question itself is wrongly framed, you can't answer. The question was about comparison of two things which are not in the same class, right? Saguna Bhakti and Nirguna Bhakti are sequential. Saguna Bhakti is the means, the sadhanam, which reaches you where? To Nirguna Bhakti, which is the sadhyam. So Saguna Bhakti is the means to come to the destination, which is Nirguna Bhakti, which means everybody has to go through Saguna Bhakti, and by going through that Saguna Bhakti, you will end up in the Nirguna Bhakti, in the discovery of Nirguna Bhakti. And therefore, without Saguna Bhakti, Nirguna Bhakti is not possible. And without Nirguna Bhakti, if you stop at Saguna Bhakti has not served its full purpose. It is incomplete. And therefore Krishna says, Saguna Bhaktas are superior. That is the answer over here. Te me yuktatama mataha. Now you might think that this Krishna is actually saying that Saguna Bhaktas are superior to Nirguna Bhaktas. Because that is a way, if you look at the question, Tesham ke yoga vittamaha. Who are the superior bhaktas between Saguna bhaktas and Nirguna bhaktas was the question. And Krishna says, I think that those people who worship me with full Shraddha, they are the superior ones. So here it looks like he is saying that Saguna bhaktas are superior to Nirguna bhaktas. But you have to note that he is saying Saguna bhaktas are superior, full stop. You should not take it as Krishna saying that Saguna bhaktas are superior to Nirguna bhaktas. He is simply saying Saguna bhaktas are superior. Why? Because they are Vishwarupa bhaktas. Okay. What about the rest of it? Nirguna bhaktas will get moksha. So this is not a question of choice over here. He is simply saying Saguna Bhakta is a great person, a great yogi. It is a inducement. Because Saguna Bhakta is a great yogi, everybody should take to Saguna Bhakti in the beginning of their sadhana. And once a person has remained in Saguna Bhakti for long enough, then he can, and that means he has got the necessary Chitta Shuddhi, then he can move to Nirvana Bhakti, otherwise called Jnana. So, Mai, how do you come to this conclusion? Mai Avesha. Mai means here, Shankara says, take it as Vishwarupa Parameshwaraha. That is Vishwarupa Ishvara, you know, take. Avesh means with focused mind. Manas Samadhaya, with focused mind. And therefore, Manaha ye mam upasate. There are some people who practice meditation upon me, Vishwarupa Ishvara. For these bhaktas, remember, Ishvara is the means and Ishvara is the end also. So there are other bhaktas who look for worldly ends. For them, Ishvara is the means, but the worldly ends are the ends. But for a Saguna Ishvara bhakta, Lord is the means, Lord is also the end. This difference we should note. And therefore, Mam. Mam here when he says, Shankara says, Adhishwaram, Lord of all lords. That is the God of all gods. Who is what? Sarvagnyam, all-knowing, omniscient. And who is free from obstruction. All obstructions, right? What kind of obstructions? obstructions like raga, dvesha, etc. So he's saying that here Mam means the Lord of all the yogis, Sarva Yogeshwaranam, Lord of all the yogis, all the karma yoga, all these people who are doing all that. This is the Lord. Saguna Ishvara we are talking about. And that Saguna Ishvara is free from all raga, dvesha, etc. And if this upasaka, nitya yuktaha, consistently, daily, he does upasana, and we can add Panchamahayagnya also he does. So here Shankara says, when you look at all these descriptions, you should think of Mat Karma Kriti in the last chapter. Mat Karma Kriti is what? A person who dedicates all his karma to the Lord. Thus, here he is indicating that this upasaka, see, Shankara is reminding you of Mat Karma Krita is very important because Mat Karma Krita is a specific term indicating that you are a karma yogi. You are dedicating all your karma to Ishvara, Saguna Ishvara. And here, since you're talking about upasana to Saguna Ishvara, that Shankara brings in Mat Karma Krita here indicates that this upasaka is necessarily a karma yogi. And this is what I said earlier. There can be a karma yogi who is only doing karma. Kevala karma yogi there can be, but there is no such thing as a kevala upasaka. It is always karma samuchaya upasana together with upasana. Right? Now, what type of upasana are we talking about? Upasana can be of two types. Sakama upasana, where you are asking for some fruits, or nishkama upasana. Sakama upasana is artha bhakti, right? Artha bhakti and artharthi bhakti, where you are asking for things. But here it is nishkama upasana, which is jignasu bhakti. You are not asking for anything. You want to know the Lord. And therefore he says, paraya shraddhaya upetaha. This person who has intense faith in me. Okay, now the question is, why is this intense faith necessary? Because what is the benefit of karma and upasana?
Gaining
Chitta Shuddhi.
Chitta Shuddhi. Chitta Shuddhi is a non-quantifiable result. You cannot see it physically. And therefore, another person who has done, let us say, 20 years of upasana, he may have got Chitta Shuddhi, but you will not be able to see it, right? So you will not know that he has Chitta Shuddhi. But Shastra says that if you do this, you will get Chitta Shuddhi. Therefore, paraya shraddhaya upetaha. You must have intense faith in me and the Shastram. And because take it for granted that when Shastra says you will get Chitta Shuddhi with Upasana, you will get Chitta Shuddhi. And if you have this faith, me mataha yukta tamaha, these people who practice such a meditation, such a dhyanam on Saguna Ishvara, they are indeed, very superior. They are indeed very great people. So mataha here has to be taken as, this is my view. Abhipretaha, this is my view. Right. Now you look at the whole answer, what has happened? Though Arjuna asked about Saguna Upasaka and Nirguna Upasaka, Krishna's answer eliminates Nirguna Upasaka. He is not talking about them at all. Then the question is, why should he say Me Mata Yukta Tamaha? Saguna Upasakas are superior. Because the word superior is a comparative term. So superior to whom? So sub-commentators give three different answers. One, Saguna Ishvara Upasaka is superior to Kevala Karma Yogi. Because Upasakas perform karma and Upasana. Kevala Karma Yogis perform only karma. Therefore, somebody who performs two sadhanas, karma and upasana, obviously he is getting higher punyam. Therefore, he is superior to Kevala Karma Yogi. That is the first one. Then, Saguna Upasaka can be of two types. The one who does Sakama Upasaka, Upasana for a particular purpose, for a particular worldly goal. And somebody who does Nishkama Upasana, who does for Chitta Shuddhi only. Therefore, this Upasaka is a Nishkama Saguna Upasaka, and therefore he is superior to Sakama Upasaka. Two things, superior to Kevala Karma Yogi, superior to Sakama Upasaka. Okay. And the third one, because they are worshipping Vishwarupa Ishvara, who is not a limited devata, right? So we have in Shastram we have Parichinna devatas. For you have, Indra is there, Agni devata is there. They are all Parichinna devatas, having only delegated powers. So who delegates the power? Saguna Ishvara delegates powers. Saguna Ishvara is Aparichinna Ishvara, one who is got all the powers, like the managing director who has all the powers, but he delegates financial powers to financial director. He delegates, managing power, managing the factory powers to factory manager, and so on and so forth. But all the powers are basically with MD. Similarly, this Aparichinna Ishvara, Saguna Ishvara, has all powers, and whatever powers are given to individual devatas, those powers are only delegated powers, part of the total powers. So they are Parichinna devatas, devatas with finite powers, and therefore this Saguna, this Vishwarupa Ishvara, who is of course Saguna Upasaka, right? The Saguna Upasaka who is worshipping Vishwarupa Ishvara, who is the totality. That Saguna Upasaka is superior to that Saguna Upasaka who worships individual devatas like Surya Devata and etc. You worship Surya Devata for, let us say, you want your eyes to be perfect. So you're worshipping a Parichinna Devata for a Parichinna purpose. So those Saguna Upasakas who worship finite deities, this Saguna Upasaka who worships the infinite deity is superior. So these are the three reasons which are given as reason for the use of the words Yukta Tamaha. This Saguna Upasaka is superior. Superior to whom? Kevala Karma Yogi, Sakama Saguna Upasaka, and Parichinna Devata Upasaka. These are the three reasons why they say that, why Krishna says that this Saguna Ishvara Upasaka is superior. Very involved thing, and you will never come across this in a normal interpretation. You necessarily have to have the commentators with you when you do this. Okay.
Acharya,
Yeah.
yeah. So first verse says both the cases it's the upasaka. So one is nirguna and one is saguna.
Correct.
Right. So is it like nirguna upasaka is equivalent to jnana yogi?
Yes, but we come to that later.
Because otherwise this discussion is not properly like valid, because he's talking about both the upasakas only and we are bringing the jnanam in between. So nirgana upasana can also be like I'm meditating on the without any attributes of something which is Brahman, but I'm not just saying that I am Brahman or I so it's basically I'm meditating on the same thing, only I'm not saying I am Brahman. Isn't it Nirguna Upasana?
Upasana needs attributes.
Okay.
If I ask you to meditate upon space, what is the meditation you will get?
No, that three aspects that Satchit Ananda, that
What? They are not attributes. Don't say they are attributes. They are descriptions. You cannot meditate upon, the only way you can meditate upon existence principle, Sat, is what? When you say meditate upon Sat, in practical terms, what does it mean?
The existence part only.
No, of course not. There is only one way you can meditate. That is to recall the Shastric Pramanam that you are Sat. When you say, the Shastra says, Aham Brahma Asmi, that is Vedantic meditation. That is what is being referred to as Nirguna Upasana. Nirguna Upasana is not different from Nididhyasana because there is no other way of meditating. But Arjuna has not understood. That is why he is asking the question. That is why Krishna did not refer to Nirguna Upasana in his answer at all.
So properly, there is no Nirguna Upasana. I mean, this Upasana word along with the Nirguna is not
It is very
technically.
frequently used, but it means
Yeah.
Nididhyasana.
Okay. So in Jnanam, in the beginning, do you know, is it not the case that we only know that Brahman is this, but I'm not told that I am Brahman?
In the beginning, in the Karma Kanda, you are not told.
In Vedanta, also in the beginning, we only describe the Brahman and not like I am Brahman.
No. Which Upanishad have you
I
seen
haven't.
that?
The first Upanishad today only I have done the class. I didn't attend any
That is
other.
a problem because you didn't do Mundaka and Kena. Every Upanishad says the same thing.
Okay. Okay, Acharya. Thank you so much.
Okay, now, and I suggest that you go back and in your spare time you read all, you go through all the previous Upanishads, two Upanishads. They are there in the group description.
Okay.
Okay, let us look at one more verse. This is the third verse. We will chant. Ye tvaksharamanirdeshyam
Ye tvaksharamanirdeşam
vyaktam paryupasate
vyaktam paryupasate
sarvatra gamachintyam cha
sarvatra
vastham achalam dhruvam.
amachalam dhruvam.
So here you find a description. So he says, Ye tu paryupasate aksharam. Some people meditate upon Akshara Brahma and Avyaktam. Avyaktam is what Shankara says, not graspable by any pramana. Instead of simply saying unmanifest, say that na kenapi pramanena vyajyataha, not being available to any pramanam at all, and therefore you are not able to grasp it because you have only your sense organs for grasping, therefore unmanifest. And because it is unmanifest, it cannot be described in words. You agree? When something which you want to describe, you need to be able to have the words, right? If you want to have the words, you need to have seen the form. And here something is avyaktam. It has not been seen by you, it has not been touched by you, it can't be smelled by you. There is no way you can have a availability to your sense organs. And therefore, Shankara says, because it is not available to sense organs, it is avyaktam. Because it is avyaktam, there are no words which you can use to describe. You cannot use words to describe something which you have not seen, and therefore only this anirdesyam. So, ye, if you break that word up, ye, tu, aksharam, avyaktam, anirdesyam. Okay, it is avyaktam. It is not available to my sense organ. Therefore, it is what? Anirdesyam. Anirdesyam means which I cannot describe. Right? I cannot describe at all. So, anirdesyam. And if something is not available for my sense organs and I cannot describe it also, that is why achintyam. I cannot even think of it. I cannot objectify it. Right? Which is why, if you have a puja room in your house or even a puja corner, right? What do? You keep an image of Lord Shiva, or you keep a statue of Lord Krishna, or you keep a photo or a painting. where do all these things come from? From various descriptions of the Puranas or the Dhyana slokas, right? They have been converted into photos or idols. Then what do you do when you meditate? You look at the photo and then you, for about 2 minutes, you stare at the photo, right? This is how you should meditate if you're doing Saguna Upasana, okay? You look at the photo, try to ensure that the features of that photo are clear in your mind. Then you close your eyes and then you try to meditate on those features. How? Trying to bring them back into your mind as a vision. That is the meditation. So if you have seen, if you have anybody who has been to the ashrams and has done meditation on the flame, it's the same thing you do. You look at the flame for a few minutes, then you close your eyes, then you try to recall the flame. So what is the pratyaksham, what you have seen, you are trying to recall in meditation. Thus trying to mentally bring it as an object in your mind. However, you don't have a description here for Nirguna Brahman. So this option is not available. Therefore, achintyam, you cannot think about it. You can think about Lord Shiva, you can think about Parvati, all those you can think about because there are photos available, there are, idols available. But since this Brahman is avyaktam, this option of thinking or recalling the image is not available to you. And therefore, Shankara says very nicely that if available to the Indriyas, then if something is available to the Indriyas, yadi karana gocharam, if something is available to your sense organs, to Indriyas, tat manasapi chintyam, then it can be grasped by your mind. So that's the first line that Shankara writes in his commentary. Yadi karana gocharam, tat manasapi chintyam. If it is available to your sense organs, then you can think about it, then your mind can grasp it. But tad viparitatvat. But if it is the opposite of that, which means what? It is not available to Indriyas, it is avyaktam, then obviously achintyam. You cannot be grasping it by the mind. And therefore, this connection we need to see. Avyaktam and manifest leads to ashabda gocharam, incapable of description with words, because it is not describable by words, therefore it leads to anirdeshyam. It cannot be talked about. And because it cannot be talked about, it cannot be indicated, therefore achintyam, it cannot be recalled, it cannot be thought about in the mind. Right? So that is the connection. And the next word is sarvatra gama. Sarvatra gama means all pervading. And Shankara gives the example of space. So that Nirguna Brahman is all pervading like space. Then a very nice word comes kutastham. Okay, kutastham means what?
Anvil.
Kutaha means anvil. Stham is what? Tha. What is tha?
Like a pillar.
Tha means steady. Okay, kutastha. It is steady like an anvil. Okay, now that is the common, what do you call, meaning we give to kutaha, steady like an anvil, right? So which means what? When you say something is steady like an anvil, it means what? It doesn't change.
Just change.
The anvil doesn't change. Nirvikaram, basically, non-changeable, right? But here, Shankara says, there is another meaning of kutaha, which is what you will see in some of the Upanishads. Kutaha means something which is fake, which is deceptive, which is a forgery, which means what's a forgery? Something which looks like the original, but it is not as valuable because it doesn't have the originality. Like the difference between a fake 1,000 rupee note and a real 1,000 rupee note. They may look the same, but one has got value, one has got no value, right? And therefore, this meaning of kutaha remember the fake 1,000 rupee note can also look very attractive, just like a real 1,000 rupee note. But by extension, therefore, this word kutaha means a forgery which is attractive to look at, but in reality, it is harmful. And using this logic, which logic? Let us say that you go to buy apples, right? You see a really shining apple, and then you see a dull apple. Which one is better?
Shining one looks better.
Eat, which one is better?
The one which is edible and which is real is better.
Remember,
the-
the shining apple is usually polished with wax. I am surprised you guys know. When you see apple really shining, it usually means it's polished with wax. So which means it's an older apple. It's just being made attractive. And therefore it's harmful to eat. That's the meaning the word kutha is being given to, which looks very attractive, but really is harmful. And therefore in Vedanta, what should be called kutaha?
The RC.
Jagat. Jagat.
Another term for that?
Maya.
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 So the word kutha is also used for Maya. And Shankara here says, therefore, that kutaha can be taken as a reference to Maya, which is the Pancha Kleshas. What are the Pancha Kleshas? It's borrowed from Yoga Shastra.
Avidya, Asmita, Raga, Dvesha.
Dvesha, Abhinivesha, right?
Abhinivesh.
So I'm not explaining all this. I'm assuming that all of you guys are familiar with all that. So he says this kutaha is avidya, etc., which is these pancha kleshas, and they are the samsara bijam. These are really full of defects and are the causes of samsara. And where are all these found? These are all found in Maya. So Shankara calls it avyakritaha. So this word you should remember. Avyakritaha is another name for being unmanifest, which is another name for Maya. Right? So this is Shankara's idea. There are two meanings to Godastaha. One is stable like an anvil, and one is harmful to you, even though it looks attractive, like Maya. These two meanings, we should remember. And then Shankara quotes, see, remember that somebody might say, where is Maya referred to in Shastram? Right? It's not very common to find the word Maya. So Shankara quotes one Shruti and one Smriti, just to tell us that yes, it is found in Shastram. Now there is one Upanishad which we have not done. Shweta Ashvatara Upanishad. Okay, so Shankara quotes from there. Maya tu prakritim vidhi, mayinam tu maheshwaram. Very beautiful line, mantra, very often quoted. What does it mean? Maya tu prakritim vidhi. But you should understand Maya as what? Prakriti, as nature. Mayinam tu maheshwaram. The one who wields the Maya. Mayina is the one who wields the Maya, uses the Maya. We should understand that person as Maheshwaraha. The very famous quote from Shweta Ashvatara Upanishad, which hopefully we will do sometime in the distant future. Okay. Right. There is also a Maya in Smriti which we have done. A chapter which you have covered in Bhagavad Geeta. Where do you find it?
Yes.
Where? Chanters, those who chant regularly. Mama Maya Duratyaya.
Chapter 7.
Chapter 7.
5 minutes में
Maya Duratyaya. Okay. So Shankara says that the word Maya is used in both Smriti and Shastram, and such a Maya you can call as Kutham. And in that Maya, what is present? Brahman is present. In what form? As the Sakshi, as the Adhyaksha, as the substratum, as the Adhishthanam. In that Maya, you will find Brahman as the Adhishthanam. And that is why he says Brahman is called Kutastha. Meaning that Stha, that which lends stability, existence to Kutaha, Maya, is Brahman. It's a very beautiful definition of Maya, Kutastham. In that Maya, you will find Stha, that substratum Brahman, which lends existence to Maya, Kutaha. This is the meaning. Okay. And there is a third meaning. Is Maya, Kutaha can also mean a big lump, heavy stones, big lump of mud, so heavy that it cannot be moved, which is the first meaning I gave you. That which cannot change, that which cannot be shaken. That is Kutastham. There are two meanings. First is Maya, and Kutastham actually means that Brahman which is present in Maya and lends existence to that Maya. It's a beautiful definition. The other one is something which is so heavy that cannot be moved, which means Nirvikaraha, and therefore Achalam. Nirvikaram, changeless. Then what is the next word? Dhruvam. Dhruvam simply means Nityam, eternal. And then Shankara in his commentary gives a definition of Upasana. He says, bring the object of Upasana close to you, literally, meaning that you have to, if it is Saguna Ishvara, you have to, in your mind, mentally recreate the image of Saguna Ishvara. This is what I talked about. That Krishna photo or the Krishna deity or the Shivalinga. Once you stare at it, you close your eyes and you have to bring it back. So bring it close to you. Samipam upagamya. Bring that object close to you. Literally meaning to make it, to objectify it. To see it as an object. This refers to Saguneshwara. But when it is Nirguneshwara, you can't do that. So in the case of Nirguneshwara, what is to be done? You have to simply recall the teaching, Aham Brahma Asmi. Okay. And all this has to be done as in terms of the instructions given. When you're saying Aham Brahma Asmi, what is that Brahman? That Shastra has told you, you have to talk about that only. And you have to remain in that state for a very long time. He says, Dirda Kalam. When you remain in the state for a very long time, then it is called Upasana. So you can do this Upasana on Saguneshwara, where it is real Upasana. If you are doing the same Upasana on Nirguneshwara, then we would prefer to call it Nididhyasanam, though some people, some texts do call it Nirguna Brahma Upasana. With this, we'll stop for today. Any questions?
Acharya, so Dhruvam finally meant what? What is the
Achalam.
meaning?
Achalam,
Achalam. Okay.
not movable.
Okay. Okay.
Firm. Okay.
Acharya.
Yes, June.
So Bhakti belongs to Karma Yoga path,
Bhakti is Karma Yoga.
right? Okay. And when we say that Upasana cannot be done without karma,
Yeah.
Is it
You
because
can't do Upasana without karma. There is no Upasana without karma. That is why when you do Nididhyasanam, we should not call it Upasana because there is no karma there.
right? So when we sit down in Saguna Upasana, that's a mental karma, right?
That's a mental karma.
But Nididhyasanam is not considered as mental karma.
No, it's not considered because the teaching is already there in your mind.
Okay, okay.
It's working on your mind.
Thank you.
All right. So with this, we'll stop for today. Om Purnamadav Punamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much, Acharya.
Thank you, Acharya.